And we continue at 1:08 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wang has the day off. He'll be back with us on Monday. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Before we get to our guest, I want to comment on that last interview that we did with Dave Jones, the former insurance commissioner of California. I just looked at the email, and many of you were angry that I didn't run him over when he started blaming climate change for the insurance industry meltdown in the state of California. Well, I didn't start yelling at him over climate change for a bunch of reasons, and I want to talk about this with you right now because I think it's important. First and foremost, that industry is collapsing here. And if you have a loan on your house, you own a property in California, you need that industry to work. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy your insurance through the state of California, which is a nightmare and costs a fortune. So if there's anything that we need at the statewide level to function, it's the insurance market. And right now, it's not functioning. He is one of the few people that people pay attention to up there on the subject of insurance. Is he left-wing? Yes. Does he buy into the idea that climate change is what is causing all of this to happen? Yes. There's nothing I could do or say that will change his mind on those subjects. What you have to do is you have to look at the opportunity that you have to have the ear of someone who people pay attention to on that subject, and you have to, A, bring up relevant information that no one up there is talking about. This is why I told him that 50% of the fires in Los Angeles are started by homeless encampments. That's not a stat that I came up with. That's not a stat that I just saw somewhere on the internet. That's according to the LA Fire Department. 50% of the fires, 50. Meaning, if you don't do something about that, you are not doing what you need to do to mitigate fire risk in the largest county in the state of California. And if they're 50% in LA County, what do you think they are everywhere else? Because the homeless encampments are all over the place. If you don't get them thinking about that, that's not going to be something they even consider when they're talking about the subject. The other thing is that our current insurance commissioner is Ricardo Lara, who has been involved in scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal since being elected. Because of that, he doesn't do media. We have reached out to him, I don't know how many times, I've lost count. Other shops in Los Angeles have reached out to him. He doesn't go on any of the newscasts. He doesn't go on any of the talk shows because he doesn't want to be asked about his scandals. So he just stays in Sacramento and he doesn't talk to anyone. Well, if no one from that office is talking to you, how do you know if these insurance companies can drop you midway through your policy? How do you know if they can force you to take pictures of your house and send it in, and if you don't do it, they can drop you from your policy? We're getting no information from that department, literally none. He had a press conference yesterday. That's the first time I've seen him do media in a very long time. If no one from that office is talking to us, we don't have information that could be very relevant to our policies. So you have to allow these people to talk to know how they think. If you don't let them talk, you won't know what they think. And if you don't know what they think, you don't know where that industry is going in the future. Screaming about him about climate change would have accomplished absolutely nothing. Do I agree with him? Absolutely not. Do I think it's a way to punt and blame something else and not take responsibility for the mess that they created? Absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, there's more of them than there are of me. And because there's more of them than there are of me, you have to be judicious with how you use your opportunities when you have access to them. If we could get them thinking about connecting the homeless issue to the fallout with the insurance issue, That's a win for us. And I think I put the idea in his head. Maybe it'll take, maybe it won't, but screaming at him certainly wouldn't have. All right. Now, it is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a voice that you see on the Fox News channel all the time, and she's also author of the book Drawing Lines: Why Conservatives Must Begin to Battle Fiercely in the Arena of Ideas. You can follow her on Twitter at Real Kira Davis. Kira Davis, welcome.
Hey, John. I feel very scolded. I'm sorry. I didn't even do anything wrong, but I'm really sorry. You did the right thing. You asked the right questions.
Well, I mean, there is an impulse, and I get it. People, their heads explode when they hear their officials blame climate change and don't take responsibility for their own failures. But if I just scream at the person and I just yell at him and he hangs up on me, then why even have him on?
Yeah, I interviewed President Obama once, and I got raked over the coals by conservatives because it was just like a lighthearted interview that I happened to get being a young, new opinion journalist. And I got raked over the coals for not just giving him the business. Well, I was like, it's the president. I asked hard questions, but I didn't lecture him, and people were mad at me because I didn't lecture him.
Yeah, it's like you can't please everyone all the time, can you?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's shift gears here and talk about the district attorney of Los Angeles County, George Gascon, who has announced publicly that he will not be seeking the death penalty for the man who admitted to assassinating an LA County sheriff's deputy in cold blood right here in Los Angeles County this past week. George Gascon said if by charging him with the death penalty, he could bring the sheriff's deputy back, he would. But since he can't, he's going to take a pass on that and give the killer a break.
The death penalty isn't a resurrection clause. Nobody imposes the death penalty because we think it's going to bring back the murdered victim. I don't know where George went to school, but where I went to school, I learned that when people die, they're dead. So nobody is trying to bring back this deputy. Nobody is trying to do that. Gascon is it's so disingenuous. The truth is he doesn't care. Because he thinks law enforcement is evil, which is why he is working to dismantle it from the inside out. So he doesn't care about that man. He doesn't care about his family. He doesn't care about the community that is affected now. So obviously the death penalty means nothing to him. The death penalty, look, here's my thing. The death penalty isn't just a type of punishment. And it's not a deterrent. In fact, we have lots of numbers to prove that the death penalty doesn't deter certain types of crime. It's not a deterrent. The death penalty, particularly in cases like this, is something that civilized societies weigh upon any given offender, and it is a way for us to say, here are the very basic rules for you being human. It's a very low bar. Here are the lowest rules for it, and if you cannot even abide by that, you cannot be a part of the human race, because to have you in our midst is to sully our moral duties, our population, and to put everyone at risk. So we have to separate the animals from the humans, right? And an animal is what this man is that did this. That's an animal. And so we should at least give the people the right to decide if we even want to deal with him on this side of judgment. But a lot of people will say, well, that's up to God, Kira. That's God's judgment. Great. Let's send him to him faster so he can get the job done.
Here's my favorite stat associated with the death penalty that no one so far has been able to refute. Among those criminals executed, the recidivism rate is 0.
Amen. Amen. But of course, another thing is Gascon doesn't care about recidivism. He thinks recidivism is just sort of a natural evolution of human nature, and people are going to do what they do. And I guess all the rest of us just have to Gascon doesn't have a plan for justice because he's not in the business of justice. He's in the business of chaos. And that's exactly what he's sowing. And think about what he's doing to the rest of the community. He's putting everyone else on notice. All of these people that he's ginned up over the last 3 years, all of these Antifa-supported people and these people with violent impulses, we have, and a lot of them are gang members that have crawled across our border and are now setting up house in our own backyard. And he's been telling them for years, well, the police are not your friend. The police are out to get you. The police are fair game. And when you do go out and harm our law enforcement, and when you do go out and visit death upon our law enforcement on purpose, we won't be making a lot of trouble for you. I honestly believe if Gascon didn't have to arrest that guy, he wouldn't have. But,
I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, of course. And so he's been sending the message that it's open season on our law enforcement. And now who pays for that but the law-abiding citizens, especially when fewer and fewer qualified adults go in to law enforcement because, A, they're scared, and B, they will have no support from the people that are sworn to support them. So this is all according to Gascon's plan. Of course, it's mass chaos because that's what he wants.
Well, if Gascon had the ability to do it, he would probably make this cop killer the employee of the month.
I wouldn't doubt it. I know we're kind of joking, but not really.
Yesterday in the paper, it was revealed that he is essentially broke, that he has $28,000 cash on hand in his campaign account, and he has debts of $30,000. And it's something that you don't typically see with an incumbent. Usually everyone needs something from an incumbent, so they write them checks even if they don't particularly like them. But he's not even able to do that. It also means that George Soros so far has at least been sitting on the sidelines. We know that George Soros is turning his operation over to his son, and they largely see the world the same way. But maybe is this an indication that his son doesn't look at these DA's offices with the same affection that the father did?
This is a tough question, and I'm not quite sure how to answer it. But I will say this. If you look at just regular life, any kind of business where, it's a father passing the business on to a son or daughter, that second generation is typically, I think I read a statistic once that said something like 75% of those children will end up crashing the business that their parent handed down to them. It's not necessarily because those children are incompetent, although sometimes they are, but oftentimes it's because those children don't share the passion of their parents, right? This was their parents' passion for a reason because of how they grew up, or maybe they grew up in the Depression era when food was scant, and so they own a restaurant because that's their way to help people. They don't share that same passion. We say the same thing about freedom, don't we? It's one generation from being under threat because our children are never going to feel as passionately about the present situation as we do. So it's hard to hand on passion. It takes effort and sustained effort. So I can't tell you how Soros has raised his son. I don't know what kind of relationship they have, and if the son is carrying his dad's same, I'll say, fetish for crashing society. It may be to a certain extent, but you have to understand now, Soros, worked his way into being a wealthy man. His son didn't. So already that he's probably a little weaker than his dad and probably a little more used to comfort and isn't going to get as uncomfortable as his dad. I'm going to assume it's at least going to be a watered-down version of what Soros is doing, but that's still enough to do plenty of damage.
That's such a good point because you see this happen all over the place where you have people who earn a bunch of money doing something that they're good at. They have these passions, and then their kids in the celebrity culture that we live in, they want to be celebrities and social media influencers and spend their time having sex with hot people. I mean, you look at just Robert Kardashian was one of OJ's attorneys, and now his daughters are huge social media influencers, reality TV show stars, even El Chapo. El Chapo has kids that are all over Instagram that are essentially attractive kids who take pictures, these professional photos of themselves gallivanting all over the world, and they are aspiring Kardashian types. George Soros' kid, I mean, you look at his social media, you look at what he's up to when he's not hanging out at the Clinton Global Fund. This guy's essentially living like El Chapo's kids or the Kardashian kids.
That's so funny. Well, in Japan, they actually have a culture of adopting adult children. And that's not because the Japanese just love expanding their families. It's because typically the Japanese business culture recognizes that most natural-born children will not carry on the legacy of their parents' business. And so what they do is they find someone who has that same passion and has potential, someone that works in the business, and then they adopt that person. And then they can say, oh, this business has passed down from family member to family member, but really it's just a way of sort of like cherry-picking a passionate family so you can continue the legacy. So that's how they do it. But yeah, you're exactly right. You have the silver spoon crowd. It's not the same as guys like Soros. They don't know what it's like to be hungry. They don't know what it's like to be hungry. So they might say and do all the right things in public that will get them the social media likes, and they might even enjoy throwing the money around. But we know also that George Soros has been involved in some really ugly and underhanded things, and that's required a lot of him. Look at him. The body keeps the score. Look at that guy. So he's had to engage in a lot of ugliness. Does his son have the same kind of mettle? Does his son have the same kind of mettle to deal with personalities like the Clintons or people on the world stage who are very well versed in deception, lies, and underhandedness? I doubt it.
If George Soros doesn't open up his checkbook and play in these DA races, I think virtually all of them flip.
Yes. Well, John, money, money, money. Listen, we've got, that last year I ran for school board here in Orange County. I lost. My seat's back up again, actually, next year because it was a special election. And I have been dedicating my time lately, and will be until the next election, to traveling across the state to talk to Republican groups and explain that, unfortunately, in the state of California, it's not just a game of passion. There are plenty of passionate people. We need money. We need to stop spending our money on governor races that we can't win, or fancy dinners that little people like me and you, John, don't care about, chicken salad luncheons at the country clubs. And we need to start pumping millions and millions of dollars into local races like attorney general races, like DA races, like school boards, races that can not just be won, but races that will literally change the landscape of these localities. Because honestly, John, if Brian Dahle had won the governorship, not much would have changed immediately about my life here in South Orange County. Not much would have changed. But if my school board had flipped last year, everything would have changed for me. And guess what? That would have changed everything for the Republican candidates who supported that school board. Because now you get to run every year on the fact that, hey, I ousted this school board. I ousted this DA. So it benefits everybody, but we're going to keep losing if we're not willing to put the money in. And yeah, it hurts. It stings to be spending all that money, but that's the reality we live in. I don't think the California Republican Party understands. We can't live in the world they wish we lived in. We have to deal with the world we do live in.
Kira Davis, author of the book Drawing Lines, Why Conservatives Must Begin to Battle Fiercely in the Arena of Ideas, available online at Amazon.com. You can follow her on Twitter at Real Kira Davis. Kira Davis, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Always. Thanks, Sean. Take care.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if at 3:01 you say to yourself, I can't believe I have to wait until noon on Monday to get a fresh version of the John Phillips Show, you can go ahead and listen to any of our podcasts. It's available on your smartphone or online at kabc.com. Programming note. Later on today, sometime the 4 o'clock hour, I'm going to be on Newsmax with Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's guest hosting over there. And we'll be talking about John Fetterman, Kamala Harris, and some other subjects. So if you're around a television, definitely check that out. All right, here's my question to you right now at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. The district attorney of Los Angeles County, George Gascon, has said he will not be seeking the death penalty for the man who admitted to killing an LA County sheriff's deputy last week. He says if he could bring back the sheriff's deputy, he would do it, but since he can't, he's going to give the accused cop killer a pass. He listens to this program. People in that office listen to this program. Right now, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to the district attorney at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. George Gascon says no death penalty for the accused cop killer. What say you? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-KABC. LA County District Attorney George Gascon says he will not be pursuing the death penalty against the man who admitted to assassinating an LA County deputy sheriff last week. What say you? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's begin with Bob in El Segundo. Bob, you're on KABC. Hello.
Hey, John. Bob Turnbull, retired police captain. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. This is the one chance that this DA has the opportunity to do the right thing for residents of California and for the family of Ryan Klinkenbroomer. And it's just a disgrace. And this is what he set himself up for in his prior jobs. And it's just ludicrous. And I can appreciate the message from our sheriff in Orange County who called him out on it. It's just more people need to call him out on it.
And what's interesting to me is when you saw him at that press conference, he thought that there would be public support behind his position. He really seemed to believe that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I was glad news media called him out. I wish they would have been a little more stern and call him out on his answer. His answer is ludicrous. You can't bring back the deputy. You can't bring back anyone that's been murdered. So hence why there's a death penalty and why California voters approved this years ago.
Well, not only did we approve it years ago, we've reaffirmed our support for the death penalty recently. So even with all of the political shifts in California, the people of California still support the death penalty.
You're so right, John. I can't appreciate you more for bringing this to the forefront and having it on today's radio. It's a disgrace.
Thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Denny in Los Angeles. Denny, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hi. I spent 28 years of my life working for the CIA under the Ronald Reagan administration to bust out the Soviet Union. We were successful. We freed millions of people. I come back to California, and this clown in our office, this George Gascon, this guy, it just makes my blood boil. What should happen to this guy, not only should he be removed from office for acting under the color of authority, of which he's not obeying our laws, but he's putting our people in danger. This guy should be stripped. He should be tarred and feathered. He should have everything removed from his asset base to his house, his dog, and his cat, and he should be drop-kicked out of the United States forever, never to return. He is a filthy, rotten disgrace to everybody in this country and to every police officer that puts their lives on the line to turn around and protect our citizens. This guy has got to go.
From your lips to God's ears, the election is not that far away. There are a bunch of candidates who are good, who are running for that office, and almost all of them have more money on hand than George Gascon. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Jorge in Los Angeles. Jorge, you're on KABC. Hello.
Oh, Hi there. I feel underqualified to speak on this following the last two callers. I just want to say this DA is being super effective at destroying and making our county less and less safe. Is it possible for him, in his capacity and for the DA's office in general, to be sued in some way as a public safety nuisance?
Well, the only thing voters can really do at this point is kick him out of office. We tried with the recalls. Those didn't take. I guess we have another group that's trying to put a recall on the ballot. If that takes, good. If not, he's up for election in March of next year. We have a very early primary because it's a presidential cycle. We can kick his ass out in March. If he doesn't finish in the top two, he can finish out the remainder of his term, but then he's done, and he won't be district attorney for the next 4 years.
Well, March can't get here soon enough. He needs to go.
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. L.A. County District Attorney George Gascon says he will not pursue the death penalty against the man who says he assassinated an L.A. County Sheriff's deputy last week. What say you? 800-222-KABC. George Gascon says he will not pursue the death penalty against the man who says he assassinated an L.A. County Sheriff's deputy last week in cold blood. Right now, it's your opportunity to respond to that idiotic decision at 800-222-KABC. Let's begin with Liz in Lakewood. Liz, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good.
I am absolutely disgusted by Gascon's decision. There is no more respect in our country for law enforcement anymore. If this happened to his immediate family or someone that he deeply cared about, I guarantee you he would be changing the tables and prosecuting and seeking death penalty. Our law enforcement goes out there every single day, and they put their lives on the line to protect all of us. And then he openly admits he murders a law enforcement officer, cold blood in daylight, and now we are not going to sink the death penalty? It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
I'm not sure he does. I'm not sure he would want to pursue the death penalty if it was one of his relatives, and I'll tell you why. His thinking is so warped, I could imagine him blaming the murder victim for putting the accused in a position where they might have to go to prison. How dare you go out there and get murdered so that this poor person who has mental problems will have to go to a prison in the state of California? Even in death, he wants victims to check their privilege.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. It's just unfortunate what our country has becoming, and it's unfortunate because law enforcement, we need them, and they are out there every day to protect and serve, and they don't know if they're coming home to their families at night. And now this poor family, third generation, who has been out there serving our country at his city, this happens to it. And now what's going to happen? Slap on the hand. Very unfortunate, and it's a disgrace to every man and woman who works in law enforcement.
Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Barbara in Los Angeles. Barbara, you're on KABC. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, John. Thank you. I am the aunt of two NYPD officers. I believe that the death penalty is absolutely appropriate in this case of this brutal ambush in broad daylight. The deputy didn't have a chance, and I've just emailed Gascon, and I told him that he should stop slapping the heinous criminals on the wrist and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt you?" And they don't want the death penalty, but these same people who don't want the death penalty for something like this, they're gung-ho to kill little babies in the womb, abortion, and I'm really just sick of it. Do they ever look in the mirror and ask themselves, what is the matter with you? What are you thinking?
Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Art on the 405 freeway. Art, you're on KABC. Welcome.
Hey, how are you doing? This is a great show, great topic. I escaped the California asylum back in '94 and moved to Idaho, and actually I'm headed back that way now. But, we have the ultimate vote. I mean, all we can do is vote these idiots out of office. When I moved to Idaho, I would never have thought that Boise, Idaho, Ada County would ever become blue. Well, it is, all surrounded by red. And that's what's happening, and people are leaving the state. But they keep voting these idiots in. I was here for the last week, and I see it, and it's disgusting. My home neighborhood, why do you guys keep voting them in? It's not Gastone's fault. He's always been an idiot. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Let's go to Mark in Los Angeles. Mark, you're on KABC. Hello.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, it's what the people voted for. It sounds like all the people here are normal, but there must have been enough people to get him in and not kick him out. And it's funny because I'm embarrassed to even tell people I lived in California. I'm from the Midwest, and in the Midwest, we have a real death penalty. We executed people like 6 months, like Starkweather, 6 months after he killed people. And here, they let the Manson family out of jail. I mean, what kind of crap is that? It's a bunch of liberal BS, and I don't understand it.
Well, it's the inmates running the asylum, as they say. Thank you for the call, sir. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Brian in Buena Park. Brian, you're on KABC. Hello.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. Gascon is a pure idiot. I'm allowed to say that because I asked for permission. Also, is it true that Governor Newsom's the one that kind of got him going?
Yeah. Gavin Newsom is the one that appointed him to be district attorney in San Francisco and then supported him when he ran for DA in L.A.
People got to realize that Newsom's the one that got this guy started. You know what? You don't hear politicians speaking up for this police. And all these, they're just staying quiet. You don't hear nobody, nobody. Nobody's ever sticking up for this guy. Poor guy. His wife, fiance, his family. Hey, he was just in his car. I hear nobody speaking up for this guy. Plus, I got relatives that live throughout Colorado, New Mexico, etc. And they talk to me and they laugh at me about California, right? I go, hey, you better be careful because this guy here, our supposedly wannabe governor, is going to be probably running for president someday.
It's possible. Thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it. Hey, we've got one more hour to go on this Jimmy Buffett Friday right here on the John Phillips Show. Talk Radio 790 KABC.